Hi there, in this video I'm going to show you 3 common methods to split firewood timber. So the first will be with a block splitter or a splitting maul. The second will be with this little hatchet and this little sledgehammer. And the third will be with this wedge. And as we go, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks when it comes to splitting timber. Now, regardless of which technique you use, the golden rule is fresh timber is always easiest to be split. So you can see some of this timber is actually quite old. That's going to be very difficult to split. Whereas timber like this, which was cut not too long ago, will be a lot easier to split. Another thing you should consider doing is getting yourself a splitting block. So in this case, these 2 pieces of timber here are very difficult to split. So we won't actually try and split it. We'll use this as a base to split other timber. And that way it gives us a nice big diameter here. So if the axe for whatever reason slips off the timber, it'll hit this splitting block instead. So I've got some freshly cut timber here, which I just did with the chainsaw. So we've got 2 different varieties. So this is some sort of gum, and this is some sort of hardwood as well. It's not pine. Alright, so we're going to try our first method, which is the block splitter or the splitting maul, and see how effective this is. And we might actually try it on both the gum and this hardwood over here. So I've placed the gum now on my splitting block, and you'll notice that I'm actually going to use, I'll just flip that over, I'm going to use the fresh face. This is the exposed face, and there's a number of cracks, which is actually a good thing. You can take advantage of that, which we will in methods 2 and 3. But for this one, I'll just flip it over, and we're going to use that fresh face, like that, because that's actually a lot easier to split. Just going to have a look over the timber and make sure there's no knots, because the knots can make life quite difficult. And that seems to be alright, so we'll just place it there. And we're going to aim for around here. The closer to the edge, actually, the easier will be to split, and it'll split across the face, which is a good thing. If you go right in the middle, you can actually jam your block splitter or your axe, whatever you use, and that's not ideal. Now, on our block splitter, we've got this overstrike protection, which is just a bit of rubber or plastic, and I'm just going to move it all the way up to the head. Now, what this does, it actually, if you for any chance happen to overstrike, so an overstrike is something like that, where you actually hit the axe timber, you can damage it. Like what I've done, unfortunately, on my small forest axe, you can see the marks there that I've left when I've overstriked. So overstrike could also look like that, where you actually come down and the timber hits along the axe handle. So unfortunately, I did that mistake on my really good axe, so I'll install a overstrike protector. But it's also a good idea for any axe you use, even a block splitter like this, to put it on, and that just preserves the life of your axe. Alright, so let's do it. Let's use our block splitter and see how we go. More perpendicular you can have it to your body, the better. Again, keep your feet straight, and as you come down, you want to position your axe so you're almost finishing at that point. Now, your force should be generated with the swing, not with your actual body strength. So here we go. So that timber, that gum over there, split really easily. So we're going to try the block splitter now on this piece of timber, which is a bit different. Now, this is the exposed face. You can see the cracks there, which is perfectly okay. But we're going to use the fresh face, which we cut before, which is that face there. because it's a lot easier to split fresh cut timber. Now in this case, we've got our block splitter semi-jammed. You can see that with that one strike we've made that nice big crack, which is excellent. Now when your block splitter or your axe is jammed, never shake it to the side. Always go up and down to free the axe head. And that way you prevent any damage from occurring. See, let's just split like that. Nice and easy. Now another tip is when you get your split timber like this and you go to store it with the bark down or with the semicircular face down. What that'll allow is actually for the timber to dry a lot quicker because the water can evaporate through the split face. And another tip and trick is where possible, try and debark your timber, and that also speeds up the drying process because the bark, it holds moisture. It can go moldy and it extends that drying process. Now method number 2, we're going to use the same timber, so the gum there and also that hardwood, and we're going to use a hatchet and a little handheld sledgehammer. Now how we do this, just put that there, is you want to position your hatchet somewhere around there, so you still got a bit of the blade protruding out, and then we're going to just hammer it in with that sledgehammer, and we'll see how effective this means is. Now just a word of warning, put that there and put that there. So you can see that with this hatchet, it's got a one-piece handle and head, so it's a drop forged handle and head, so we can give it a few blows. You can see I already have there, and it won't actually break. What I don't recommend is you do it on something like this, which is a independent head and handle. Now even though this is a brilliant axe, and you can see another video I'll just put in the top right hand corner there, so check it out where I compare these two axes, but you don't want to do it on an axe like this because it's not designed for hammering. So what could happen is, see these steel parts on the side, they can actually flare out and break and crack, so you don't want to actually use something like this. This is just a cutting axe, so you do like your cuts across like that, and it is a brilliant axe, by the way. So I'll just put that aside and use my less expensive hatchet over here to show this method. So we put our axe hatchet like that, so the blade protrudes a little bit, and that helps it, if it ever is to get stuck, it's a lot easier to take out. So this is not working very well. I'm going to flip it over now, and I'm going to take advantage of these cracks. So say for example this one, if I place the blade there, go in, strike, even that's proving difficult. Alright, let's give it another shot. We'll take advantage of that crack. There. There we go. Alright. So you notice that we're starting to create a crack there, and that crack should propagate and open up as well as we go. So you can hear the timber now opening up and cracking. So a few more strikes should do it. So you can see now we've opened up quite a fair bit of that timber. Now we're at the point where the axe is buried in and we can somewhat take it out. We've got a nice big crack. Now this is where this method kind of falls short. What we can do is use our block splitter and hammer that in to open it up, or a wedge. And we'll just place it above, not in the way of the hatchet. So now hatchets come out, which is great. And we'll just flip it around and do the same thing over here. Done. Alright, so that technique, a lot more effort, but it is a nice clean cut, and it is a very controlled cut as well. So there's no missing of the axe, when you're swinging it, but it does take a fair bit of effort. An advantage with using this second method is when your timber becomes quite small and a bit unstable, using the block splitter you can almost, come off the edges there and miss, or hit on the side of the axe head and it goes flying. With method number 2, because it's so controlled, you don't have such a problem. So method number 3, we're going to be using the block splitter as actually a sledgehammer. So we're going to be using that back face, and we're going to be using it to hammer this splitting wedge in. Now you can see that this splitting wedge, it's had a very hard life. It's actually a bit blunt, so it might not work as well as we hope. You can see that it's mushroomed out quite a fair bit. So what could happen is when it comes to this point, it'll just bite into the timber and actually won't split anymore. But look, let's give it a shot. So you could see that the block splitter was just almost bouncing off, but it has left us with some indentations there, which we can place our splitting wedge like that and start hammering it in. Now the bad thing is with this splitting wedge, because it's rounded so much, it's actually hard to drive in straight. So you can hear it cracking. You can see along the face there and along its body, possibly on camera. There you go. We've driven in the wedge, and like we thought, it's bottomed out on this mushroom, so it's a good idea to grind that off, but I didn't. Now we've got it stuck, so we're going to actually use the block splitter to continue with this cut and the split. You see it is quite substantial, so this method would work really well if we had a good splitting wedge. So using technique number 3, which was this wedge and the block splitter as a sledgehammer, we're able to split this timber, and towards the end, for obvious reasons because of this mushrooming, the wedge actually started biting onto the face, which is not what you want. So look after your tools, don't let it get into this state, because it'll just make your life a bit harder. But it is a good technique and works efficiently. So let's have a look now at the actual axe blade itself. So these are our hatchet on our right and our small forest axe on our left. So you'll notice the hatchet is more of a triangular shape and it is quite thin. And the same with our small forest axe. In fact, the small forest axe has almost this concave surface around it as well. And have a look at our block splitter now. So you can tell that this is designed to split apart the timber when it penetrates in. There you go, there's a comparison of the hatchet and the block splitter. And then comparing the wedge as well, that's also more triangular, but you can get different design wedges as well. So there you have it, we've compared 3 different methods for splitting timber. The first was using our block or our Maul splitter, the second using our hatchet and little sledgehammer, and 3 using our splitting wedge and using our block splitter as a sledgehammer. So method 1 is probably my preferred, and method 3 for some very difficult timber. Method number 2, it is probably more tiring than the other 2 methods, and still very effective on smaller timber, but make sure your equipment is up to the punishment. So I hope you found this video informative. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and like this video. Thanks for watching.